Now, our church welcomes to its worship and fellowship all who are in sympathy with the religion, thus simple and free. Many people don't understand, however, how a church could be united without a common creed. Most churches have a creed or a statement of belief that everyone is supposed to recite and agree to. That's what binds them together, what unifies them. Here, however, what unites us is a covenant. Right, so now flip again to your order of service to the middle where we have our covenant, if you would. We read this every time we gather and worship, Sundays, Wednesdays, Fridays, whenever we're worshiping, and it says, if you'll read along with me, love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So we are united, not by common belief, but by a sacred promise that we make each week to one another. That's how people of many and various beliefs can come together as one church family. And our covenant and statement of purpose are the compass that points us in the direction we need to go. It shows us what is true north. And it reminds us what we stand for. From that, we develop our vision of where we want to be in the future. Yet when we clarify our vision, and we're also aware of our current reality, we create a gap. A space between where we are now and where we want to go. And that gap creates tension. So we're living in the tension. There's usually a degree of uncertainty and discomfort. And the danger is that people often try to move too quickly to resolve the uncertainty and discomfort in their lives before it has a chance to move them towards their vision. The problem with rushing through our uncertainty is that we may be too quick to latch on to something that feels certain and comfortable, even if it isn't what we really want. Right? In our personal lives, it may be the wrong job, the wrong solution, the wrong lover that we grasp onto in order to feel secure in a time of uncertainty and discomfort. In the life of our church, it could be grasping on to the idea that this is the way it's always been. That's why at times of transition in the life of an institution or a church, it's really important to get together and remind each other and to be very clear about what it is about our church that can never change. And then, by default, what it is that can. In the story of the lemmings, remember the no leaps? They were reactive. They knew what they were rejecting, but they didn't know what they wanted. If we're not careful in a church like ours, there can be a tendency towards reaction because most of us know what we don't want. We don't want doctrines and dogmas and literal interpretations of Scripture. We don't want a religion based in fear or judgment or shame, guilt, or superstition. We don't want anyone telling us what we should believe or what we must believe. So knowing this helps us to discover what we do want, what is non-negotiable. We want a church that allows us to bring our doubts and our questions as well as our faith. A church that allows us to explore truth freely with mind, body, and spirit. We want a Sunday school for our children where they can learn not only about the Bible, but also from science and the world's great religions and philosophers and poets. These things will always be central to who we are, no matter where our vision takes us. So being visionary requires us to ask these questions. What do I want to do with my life? With my sense of purpose? Or what do we as a church want to create with this special but short life that we have? With this building and this history and all of our resources? Now, this is a very exciting time in the life of this church. Today, I didn't mention in the announcements, but we have a group of over 50 ministers and lay people from around the country who are visiting us, who came to Tulsa this weekend to attend a conference on building multicultural congregations. And so they made a point of coming here on Sunday morning to see what we're doing. So for their benefit as well as for our own, I want to share kind of briefly what's been happening here over the last 10 months. And for those of you from former New Dimensions, I realize I'm telling your story, and I'm greatly honored to tell your story and to realize that it's becoming our story. And that's beautiful. So Bishop Carlton Pearson was the founder of what became 5,000-6,000 member multiracial congregation in Tulsa for the past 25 years. It's rooted in the African American Pentecostal church culture and theology. A few years ago, he discovered through prayer and extensive Bible scholarship that God does not damn Jews, after all, or Muslims, or Buddhists, or any other non-Christians to hell. He went a step further, and he said that God does not condemn gay and lesbian and transgender persons either. His new theology, which he outlines in his book, The Gospel of Inclusion, which I recommend, is what many of us would call a classical version of universalism, which states that God's love extends to all people and denies the concept of a punishing and wrathful God. Unfortunately, Bishop Pearson's televangelist colleagues from the Trinity Broadcast Network and Oral Roberts University and throughout the country deemed him a heretic and publicly denounced him and his message. We call that giving him the left foot of fellowship. The condemnation and the bad publicity caused many longtime members to leave the church. The United Church of Christ pastors here in Oklahoma reached out to him and to his associate pastor, Jesse Williams, and they were eventually ordained in the UCC tradition. And then Trinity Episcopal Church in downtown Tulsa welcomed them to use their sanctuary at 1 p.m. on Sunday afternoons to worship there after they'd lost their building, after there weren't enough members to sustain the overhead, and they lost the building and many other things. Now, during this time, I had the great fortune of developing a relationship with Bishop Pearson, a friendship through regular lunches and occasional pulpit exchanges. As a matter of fact, when my wife and I lost our daughter a few years ago, Bishop Pearson was the first minister, other than, of course, the ministers of this church, but the first minister outside of my tradition to come to our house and sit with us in our living room on that fateful night, because we developed such a bond and a closeness. Last May, he asked if his congregation could try worshiping here at All Souls during the summer, because we typically have gone in the summer down to one service just at 10 o'clock, so we had an 11:30 slot in the morning, and he was looking to start something Sunday morning because 1 o'clock, a lot of people told him 1 o'clock in the afternoon was a difficult time. So with the approval of our Board of Trustees, we welcomed then the New Dimensions Church to worship here over the summer. Bishop Pearson and Pastor Jesse were surprised to find that throughout the summer, at least half of the attendants at their service were longtime members of this church. New Dimensions members found that they were being invited to lunch by members of All Souls and meeting them out in the community at the mall and downtown and being befriended. Now, at the same time, Bishop Pearson was traveling and speaking all over the country, probably 2 or 3 weekends a month. And so he had to do that in order to support his family as well as the church and the church staff during that time of difficult transition. And then the final blow came at summer's end when tragedy struck the New Dimensions congregation. As Bishop Pearson learned that his associate minister, beloved associate minister, Jesse Williams, was dying of terminal cancer, Bishop Pearson knew that there was no way that he could sustain his church in Tulsa without Pastor Jesse. So in August, he announced that he was going to need to discontinue his church ministry after more than 25 years. The New Dimensions community went into mourning as they began to say goodbye to their church, so many of their people they were in fellowship with for so long, and the pastors they loved.